Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of the Chatty Runners podcast. I'm sure you've already listened to our previous 8 episodes, but just in case you haven't, you can find all of these on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and also YouTube. So this week it is week 9, and we are very much on cloud 9 because we're full of excitement for the European Athletics Championship, which is currently taking place just around the corner in Birmingham. But more on that later. For now, we need to get ourselves warmed up for the main set. I wasn't here for last week's podcast, so I'm desperate to find out what Dan and Andre have been up to and have a good catch up. So Andre, start with you. What has been happening in your week of running?
Well, it's definitely good to have you back, Sophia. You were missed by both of us last week, but Ross was a good guest, but he's not Sophia, so that's. Last week was actually quite a packed week. Finally got my new running trainers. I got my first carbons, so I got the Asics Magic Speed 5 after a palaver of deliveries, which ended up in me buying the same trainers from 3 different places and 2 cancellations, and finally got it delivered on Saturday. And I went at my first run in them on Sunday. So it was definitely an experience. It seems to have unlocked a new speed for me. But I'll be interested.
Worth the wait then.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully with the Unity 5K on Sunday, I'll be able to put that new unlocked speed to test. But, we'll see. What about you, Dan? What have you been up to this week?
Well, I have just been training as normal for the Tallinn Marathon, which is coming up next month. I'm probably about a week and a half away from the taper, but I picked up a little injury when we went to Wire Forest a few weeks ago on that very, very big climb. I pulled something, unfortunately, and it hurt. So I kind of laid off the running for a few days, tried a 10K middle of last week, and it still wasn't right. So I rested a few more days. Went to Delamere Forest Park Run, which is up in Cheshire, on Saturday, which was absolutely gorgeous. But then again, you know me, I love park runs. It could be running through a chemical plant and I'd still go, this is an amazing park run. It's just the way I am. And then on the Sunday, I went for a long run and I feel no ill effects. A little bit sore the next day, but still good. And I also this week, I have tried out my new Mizuno Hyper Warp trainers, which are carbon plated. And they're absolute weapons. It's the second time I've used them, but it's the first time I've used them on tarmac rather than on the track. So yeah, really exciting. And can I also add, Sophie, it's really good to have you back. We loved having Ross. Ross, you were a brilliant guest. If you're listening to this, I hope you're listening to this, Ross, please. But it's nice to have you back, Sophia, to have that something a bit different, to stop us blokes taking over the world.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I guess no one mentioned Pitbull last week, so good to be back to keep flying that flag.
Absolutely. So, Sophia, what was your week like then?
Well, I guess I'm just jealous now that I haven't bought a new pair of shoes, because you both have, and now I feel like I simply must go shopping. I did not do much shopping. I did do plenty of running, and yeah, the summer's just speeding by. I can't believe your marathon is just a few weeks away now, Dan. I'm in a similar position, but a bit more of a kind of a longer runway in that it's now less than 8 weeks until Manchester Half, which is my next A race. And again, it sort of just feels like that's going to be here in the blink of an eye. So yeah, my long runs have been getting longer. I don't think I did a very good job of getting kind of well-fueled recovery after my long run on Sunday because I have quite literally been starving for the last 3 days. And it's felt like no matter how much I eat, have a big breakfast, have 2 breakfasts, have a giant lunch, have snacks, I've just been starving for days. It was a 14-mile run and it did have some sections of sort of faster paces in there. So I think it's just the first time that I've had a really intensive run in terms of the energy need. So lesson learned there of make sure you definitely take the time to fuel well after your long runs. It's a lesson I've learned before, but sometimes you have to learn them multiple times, don't you? So it's one of those.
Absolutely. And hydrate as well, of course. It all goes hand in hand. I know certainly after I finished my long run on Sunday, I got myself a protein shake on the way home because I just wanted some liquid in me, and I had a drink as well on the way home because I finished my long run probably about 4 miles away from where I live, so I had to walk home. But I generally plan it that way anyway. And then we had a lovely, lovely little trip up to have a little bit of afternoon tea up in the potteries at the Wedgwood
Oh,
factory, and then came home and just watched some TV. Really, nice way to end the weekend.
sounds like a good recommendation. Afternoon tea is like the recovery fueling. Perfect.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would highly recommend it, but you've got to make sure you do the long run first. Otherwise, you're just putting empty calories into your body. So there we go.
Oh, maybe the day after you'd feel really springy if you had it on the Saturday and then did a long run on the Sunday. I'm just going to advocate for it at any time you want.
We'll see. We'll see.
Andre, are you feeling well fueled for your race on the weekend?
I'm never well fueled for a race.
Oh, maybe just well
I,
hydrated is most important then with the hot
yeah,
weather.
I'm drinking a lot at the moment, so I've got a tankard of blackcurrant squash right here. So I'm starting. I'm trying to be good in terms of hydration at the moment. It's just
Yeah.
that all other fueling is not very good.
What time does your wave go off on Sunday, Andre?
I'm in the first wave, which starts off at about 11, something like that.
I'm way behind you. I'm about 12:30 or something like
Oh,
that. Which,
really?
yeah. So I think they want to get as many people around that course as
Yeah.
possible. So I, I was umming and ahhing whether I'm going to try for a 5K PB, but I thought I'm just going to get along and enjoy it and support you. I might try and sneak into your wave, but I don't know how that would work, whether I'd be banned from athletics for the rest of time.
I think based on the nature of the race and the sort of, they want it to be a really big celebration. They want lots of people to enter and be part of it. I feel like they're less likely to be serious on things like wave starts. I know typically the rule is that you could go back, but you shouldn't push forward into an earlier wave. But I don't know. I feel like you might get away with it here.
Yeah, but it's not your athletics license that you'd lose, is it,
Ah,
Sophia? Yeah,
you could
Sophia
use
told me
mine
to
if
do
you
it.
want. Right under my name.
Yeah, I don't think I'd get away with that.
Hey, maybe you just have to catch up.
True. True. I'll be honest with you. I'd have to. I'll be honest with you, Andre would either have to really fall off a cliff, which I know is not likely, or I would have to run a minus time. So literally not
Yeah,
negative
you'd have
physically.
to time travel.
Yes, I'd have to go back in time.
This is the Chatty Runners Podcast.
Athletics is changing fast. New leagues, new formats, new broadcast tech, and a fan base that wants more than just results. But with every global event comes the same risks: bloated schedules, over-the-top spectacle, confusing formats, and athletes pushed to breaking point. So today, we're breaking down what the sport could learn from the best in global broadcasting and what it should absolutely leave behind. So we've talked about this briefly in the podcast, but about the European Championships that are taking on at the Alexander Stadium in technically Perry Bar, but as still part of Birmingham. Andre, I'm looking at you as a native of Birmingham. Is Perry Bar part of Birmingham?
Yes, it is. It's all part of Birmingham. It's the Athletics Championships is in Birmingham.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a very fine stadium. I was lucky enough to run round it with Rock Up Running a few weeks ago. And quite frankly, it absolutely blew me away because I've run around athletic stadiums before and it was a different experience. But enough about that. But Andre, I believe you're going to the Athletics Championships this week.
Yes, I managed to purchase some cheaper tickets, only £38 each for the Saturday morning session. So I've managed a very busy schedule that I've got planned for this weekend. So I've managed to put that in. I don't know how much I'm doing a park run as well on Saturday morning. So it's straight from the park run to the Alexander Stadium to watch at least a couple of hours of the morning session. So I'm actually looking forward to that. When you're watching it on TV and you're just like, I want to be there. I want to feel that the atmosphere. And while it's only figuratively down the road, I might as well soak up that atmosphere. It's not every day when championships like this are in Birmingham.
Absolutely. And Sophia, have you watched any of it on TV? I know you're a little bit further out from Birmingham, but did you watch Inga Bixen and Amy Hunt, for example?
Caught any of it live. I've seen a lot of highlights and recaps though. And I think as the week goes on and we get into some more of the sort of, big finals, I'll definitely try and catch some of them. I actually looked at tickets because I thought it would be sold out, and I looked at tickets yesterday maybe or Monday, and I couldn't believe how there were still tickets available. And yes, some of them were the higher price band, but overall there were plenty of tickets for all of the sessions. And I was just really surprised. But yeah, I sort of wish I'd thought about it earlier and got tickets and sort of planned it in. Because yeah, I'm a little bit of FOMO that Andre's gonna get to go and see some of it live. It will be great.
Yeah, and I mean, some good news this week for the UK that London will be bidding for I think it's the 2029 World Athletics Championships to be hosted at the London Stadium, the Queen Elizabeth II Olympic Park, home of West Ham United, who were the sticking point for a very long time, refusing to move their first few fixtures. Obviously, those will be fixtures probably in the Conference League, not the European Conference League. I'm talking the Conference League, the Vanarama Conference League, or whatever they've rebranded it to this year, because quite frankly, that's a club that's definitely sliding down the leagues. They'll pass Shrewsbury Town on their way up, hopefully. I've just alienated all West Ham fans, but brought in all the Millwall fans anyway. So that's good news. There's obviously other championships that have taken place within the UK in the last month or so. So there was the Commonwealth Games, which in 2022 was held in the same stadium as the European Championships. There are other sports involved, and we are going to encompass some of those sports. We're going to mention them. And I would like to, at this point, ask for a little bit of clemency for mentioning possibly a sport that involves two wheels and some comparisons of ways that we could use the lessons learned from, say, for example, that sport that I can't mention. Would that be okay, guys, if I did bring it up occasionally? I promise I won't turn this into a cycling podcast.
I thought you were talking about motorcycling.
Well, the way I ride, that's fast. No.
You're
Okay.
allowed to say the C word, let's say 5 times.
5 times?
That's
Okay.
your limit.
Okay. How am I going to work that one in? Okay, right. I'll save it for a big one then. So the Commonwealth Games, unfortunately, it was behind the TNT paywall for the vast majority of it. So TNT struck a deal with Commonwealth Sport to broadcast it exclusively in the UK. There was uproar, and they had put some highlights onto Channel 5. But quite frankly, I don't think it got the coverage that any Commonwealth Games has done before. It's a reduced games. The Athletics was in a stadium that was, quite frankly, you wouldn't have hosted a national championships in it. And no disrespect to the stadium, I'm sure it's a very fine stadium, but it didn't scream international standard athletics, although Josh Kerr absolutely smashed the mile again. But it was a bit of a disappointment, I think. Would you agree, guys? Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you compare that Commonwealth Games to the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games, it's just obviously more sports on the BBC, free to air. It felt like a national event, whereas this, I mean, I watched a few days of the highlights on Channel 5, but nothing compared to like the Birmingham ones, where I was watching it every single day as much as I can. I even went to a few events, and it's just felt so disconnected from it because it just wasn't there to be available. And how are these athletes going to get this exposure if they're hidden behind a paywall?
Yeah. And Sophia, what was your feeling on the Commonwealth Games? Did you catch any of it, or did it just pass you by?
It would have passed me by, again, if it weren't for social media. I was sort of aware of it happening. Obviously, there had been the kind of Diamond League and the mile world record in the weeks before. So it's been kind of a busy summer, I guess, in terms of athletics. And yeah, I think I was less interested in the Commonwealth Games as opposed to the European Athletics Championships that's on now. So yeah, having said that, I think we had some great performances there in terms of the UK or England team, whoever it was technically representing. But yeah, I knew it wasn't really televised, like you say. It wasn't kind of publicly available for everyone.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say is, although you didn't get the likes of Keely Hodgkinson turning up to it, some of the top level athletes, it does give the next level athletes within the larger countries, England, Scotland, Australia, Wales, Canada, gives them an opportunity to come through. So it's a good way of getting younger athletes the experience at international championships. So there is that. And it also gives a lot of smaller nations an opportunity to race on a massive scale where they wouldn't necessarily get a chance at the Olympics, which it's often compared to as being a poor relation.
I mean, it's nice seeing like countries like Guernsey, like or people from those smaller, let's say UK Isles, being able to put their own like tops on. It's I feel like I'm still supporting them. Anyone who's part of Team GB, like I love. I'm going to say this, Dan. I love watching the cycling. So I like watching the Team Wales, Team Scotland, like team, all the other teams and all the other nations as well. I feel like the Commonwealth. It just feels like it's different parts of. I understand what the Commonwealth means historically, and I know Amy Hunt has talked about her not particularly liking what the Commonwealth means, but I think it feels a bit different if you're an England athlete compared to the other small nations where it's a lot more important. If they haven't got a worldwide games, then these are almost their worldwide games that these smaller nations can participate in.
Well, there was a triathlete, Flora Duffy, who probably wouldn't have got the same sort of coverage had she been racing for Bermuda at the Olympics, but she did. She has now retired. She won the gold medal at Tokyo in 2021, the delayed games due to COVID, and she raced in the Commonwealth Games as well. And she was a phenomenal athlete. But athletes from a smaller country may not get a chance. And if you've got a country like, for example, England, that for example, you can have a runner from England, a runner from Scotland, a runner from Wales, a couple from each country, and it's a great opportunity for them to do that. Junior athletes to really blood them into those. So I think the Commonwealth Games has a place in these international events, and it's a great spectacle.
I really do enjoy watching the Commonwealth Games. For me, it's another chance to get behind your team. If you've got your athletes that you enjoy watching, you can follow them on like from competition to competition. So you can watch like our GB. England, Scotland, Wales stars, athletes from the Commonwealth Games, and then their next races, these Europeans that are coming up now, and it's a good chance to support the athlete on their road rather than going from watching them in the Commonwealth Games and then not watching anything else until the Olympics or whatever major event there is. It's nice and competition to competition, see how they're progressing, see how they're peaking.
Do you watch the British Championships each summer? Because I love to watch that as well, just for the same reason of just following the journey, seeing how people are doing.
I did watch it. I went last year, but then we just watched it on the TV this year. So I'm trying to. I suppose I'm a good like one of those. I was a casual athletics fan. You could probably say only really watching athletics during the Olympics. So I don't. So that's me every 4 years. Let's say before 3 years ago. Now it's every time the athletics is on. I'm immersing myself as much as I can. So like for the European Championships, I've watched every session so far. Had my phone on my desk at work, and I've been watching every session so far. So as soon as we've like finished the podcast here, I'll go put it on the iPlayer and just start from the beginning, sort of thing. I'm just immersing myself as much in athletics as much as possible.
You've been dedicated. I feel like we should get you as the next presenter for like BBC athletics coverage. That would be perfecto.
I love it.
I'd love to see you next to Paula Radcliffe or Denise Lewis, and that would be amazing. But I previously alluded to the fact that the Commonwealth Games is presented as like a different version of the Olympic Games, obviously with without the powerhouses of China or the US in it, despite the fact they were at one point probably eligible for that. But let's not go into that. This is not a podcast about empire. The Olympics, the biggie. That's the biggie as far as I'm concerned. The Olympics, and I think certainly from my perspective, 2012, my heart goes back to 2012, and I think that's the last time I can think of this country. You could walk around and just look somebody else in the street and just kind of like go, yeah, we did it. Because there was when 2012 was announced, it was going to be, this is going to be a disaster. And from that opening ceremony to the closing ceremony, it was amazing. And then the Paralympics, the best Paralympics ever, in my opinion, went on and absolutely knocked it out the park, changing the game for para athletes, all over the world, and giving them that limelight to shine in. Did you guys go to any of the Olympic sports?
No, I feel like it really passed me by. I was just coming out of university at that time and didn't do any exercise. Had no interest in sports really at that point in my life. So it did pass me by, and yeah, I had a busy summer just with stuff related to the course that I was doing. And yeah, it does. In hindsight now, I feel like it's a real shame that I wasn't in a different, part of my life and had different interests so that I could have been part of it and enjoyed it, because so many people do look back at it with that just huge sense of pride, like you said, Dan, and I didn't. It passed me by completely.
I went to watch the football at the Ricoh Arena, as it was called then, and I remember watching the GB women play, and it was the first time I've ever been in a stadium where the national anthem's been on, and it just felt like I got a bit emotional hearing the national anthem, and it was that was a part of me. I was like, I'm never going to. I don't know whether the Olympics are ever going to be in this country ever again. So it's just nice to be amongst people who might be thinking exactly the same thing, and just being a part of that. That's why I do like to be part of these events that I'll go and watch, because you never know when this is going to happen again, and just start, adding to your CV of things that you've been to, that you've watched over the course of your life, sort of thing.
I was at that game as well. Was that GB Canada, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I remember that one. So it literally, Team GB women beat Brazil and then qualified for the next round, but they were going to Coventry, and suddenly all of the tickets for Coventry were being bought up really quickly, and they couldn't get them out in time. So I remember going there to pick up my ticket, and there was a queue of people waiting to get into the stadium to get their tickets and then get into the stadium. And all of the volunteers were working really, really hard. And it's the only time I've seen people in the queue not getting tetchy and actually saying, well, look they're doing a great job here. And they really were. These were volunteers that were working their absolute socks off, and fair play to them. That was another thing that came out of it, the volunteer side of the games.
I was just going to say, can you film reels and little clips and things of your experience on Saturday when you're watching? I want to see Andre at the athletics on my Instagram.
Absolutely. I think that's definite.
Okay, I'll do some of that, yeah.
Just to give you an even busier weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's, yeah.
Edit it as you're running around on the Unity 5K, PB, and editing a video. Brilliant. Yeah, no, that, I have to admit, I was sorely tempted, but it's just the cost of it at the Europeans was just, it was the cost and the logistics. So, Andre, you live in Birmingham. It's a lot closer for you. You know all the little places to park and easy ways to get across. For me, it was going to be a £50 ticket to get a decent view, and then 20 quid for park and ride. And then I'd be getting home at like 1 o'clock in the morning and thinking, I've got to work in the morning. And I thought, do you know what? I'll just watch it on TV whenever I can, when I ever get a moment. But going back to the Olympics, and obviously it was hosted in Paris last time, and it's in Los Angeles. The location of the event makes a big difference to the audience, certainly here in the UK. I wouldn't necessarily tune in to a lot of the events given the time difference between here and LA. Would you guys get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch the women's volleyball?
No.
No, probably not. No.
There was a big pause there, Andre. It sounded like you were going to go the other way.
No, I wouldn't. If I'm like very patriotic, and I will, if Team GB are playing in anything, then I will generally try and watch I'll immerse myself in the total experience that is the Olympics. It's a bit like Wimbledon. I'll watch I'll watch those 2 weeks like fully. The Olympics is exactly the same. I'll just immerse myself in all loads of sports that I've never even considered, like something like taekwondo, or I'll watch that. It's all the track and field events. I'll just immerse myself in. Suddenly I'm cheering for Scott Lincoln when he's throwing his shot put and things like that. It's a year ago, I didn't even know who Scott Lincoln was, and then I've seen him in the British Championships last year. I've seen him in the British Championship this year, and now I know. I'm following his progress. Can he? That sort of thing. One of my favorite athletes is Amy Hunt. I watch her on
Yeah.
YouTube and everything like that. So it's nice. Getting that that inside information when you're watching her YouTube, and then you see her putting that into practice during the races, and it's nice to know. She's things that we might be like thinking, oh, she just did that thing there, where it's just one of those things where I want to be. I wish that people who didn't like athletics could feel the way that we do about it, but there's just not as much exposure, and I think that's the problem. I don't think athletics has a entertainment problem. I think it's definitely got an exposure problem, and then the people who decide how much exposure these just don't really care about. You'd like to be put in a way that every athletics tournament, things like that, gets the coverage that it deserves. If you want to be creating the next stars of the future, then you need to give the kids now free access to watch it.
Is it
Yeah.
because it's not as commercial? There isn't the big, capitalist corporation backing behind it, the big money in terms of advertising and sponsorship packages, that then means that flow of money doesn't go through as far as getting it broadcast in a really big way. Because I just wonder if that's the difference. You think about Formula One, you think about football, there's a lot of big business money tied up in it. And I wonder if that's why.
I think athletics is trying to fast track its way to stardom. So where you've got those sports, as you were saying, like F1 and football, they've already got it. They've established. They've got the big sponsors. Whereas athletics is trying to get the money in first, and then building that foundation after that.
So can I just bring in here the concept of the Grand Slam track, which unfortunately has died a death. It didn't really take off, it was simply just track events rather than having track and field. And it was some of the best athletes in the world racing round tracks in various cities, sometimes as part of a team, offered lots of money to compete, to try and break world records, to make it a spectacle. And there's also another type of event that's women only, which I've got to applaud, the Athlos series, which is going to be a similar sort of thing, but different sort of cities, women only events. And I think Keely Hodgkinson, Sakari Wilson has signed up as well. And yeah, that could be something that will change sport for women, because I don't think women's sport gets the same level of coverage. Any sport gets the same level of coverage as men's sport. So we've just had the Men's World Cup, and although the Women's World Cup gets a lot of coverage now, I don't think it'll get the same level of coverage as the men's game, and won't, because it was held back for so many years. And it's the same with athletics. Women were not allowed to run a marathon at the Olympics, I think, till the 1984 Olympics or 80 Olympics, and there was medical advice given that women should not run a marathon because their uteruses might fall out, which quite frankly is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, having run with a few women in my time. They could absolutely kick my behind with with the way they run. They're fast girls, pardon the phrase. And yeah, I also think that, and this is my first mention of cycling. So the Tour de France Femme has been on recently, and it was excellent. It followed the men's Tour de France, which is just known as Le Tour de France. There's no Femme at the end of those. There's no Homme at the end of it. And it was a spectacular event. The yellow jersey in the men's event over 3 weeks, 21 days, only changed hand about 2 or 3 times and was held by one rider, Tadej Pogačar, for most of the race. And it was a foregone conclusion from pretty much the end of the first week. And it made it kind of not a boring event, but just less of a spectacle. So there wasn't the Titanic battle of the lead changing hands on several
Is that
occasions.
what that term means? Because I had no idea what you meant when you said yellow jersey changing.
Yeah, yellow jersey. So in the Tour de France, the yellow jersey is awarded to the rider who has got the shortest overall time to complete all the stages. So it's very complicated. It's like a race which has got races within the race and then bits within it. It's if it was a video game, you'd be like, this is very convoluted, but it actually makes an awful lot of sense. And I will come back to the Tour de France. But the reason I mentioned the Tour de France Femme is because French TV, who for years had covered men's Tour de France, covered the women's Tour de France for international broadcasters. They put the pictures out there, but they were only broadcasting it, providing pictures for the final hour of racing. So you were missing some of the early breaks that riders made, some of the early action, some of the best parts of it. And that drew an awful lot of criticism from many men, women, advocates for women's cycling, saying this is not good enough. And that's something that I think needs to change, certainly. And this Athlos series, going back to running, see how I turn that right round away from cycling into running. The Athlos series is a great opportunity for women to showcase their talent, because it's often considered that men's racing is the only exciting part of it. And in all honesty, that's wrong, because it's just as great a spectacle. If you, it doesn't matter the gender of the person running, if the activity is exciting, then it's going to grip you.
Yeah, I think Athlos they've done events certainly in New York before, but I didn't know they were expanding. So if that's going to become more of a series, as you say, I think that's great. Yeah. I actually feel like in athletics, like you say, maybe not when you get to the marathon and some of the other kinds of events, road running events, but certainly for athletics, I feel like because they're such short events, it is fairly equal. You have this sort of headline sessions on the weekend evenings, but you'll have a final for a men's event and then a final for a women's event, and they'll be different and they'll be sort of alternated throughout the sort of final days of the competition. But on the whole, I do feel like you get a pretty good span and a pretty equal weighting, because all the events for both male and female are shown. And yeah, maybe it's more like the field events are always in the morning session and they get a bit less of the glamour of the evening stuff. But yeah, certainly between, the 400 meters or the 800, 1500, those kind of big events, I feel like it is pretty equally weighted. But I definitely agree that more focus on women's sport overall is definitely needed and definitely a good thing.
I think we've where we talk about like athletics as a whole not getting the exposure that it needs. I think within athletics itself, I think there's a problem between track and field, because at the moment track is very glamorous, and it's getting more glamorous. And probably the shorter distance races like 100, 200, probably up to 800, we'd say. And then everything probably a bit longer than that on the track, and field events aren't seen as glamorous anymore. And I think that's another small problem that's within athletics itself. Because as much as you want everyone to be, everyone deserves better pay, better financial rewards, more competitions, more exposure. But I think it's showing this more glamorous side to athletics.
We don't know any steeplechasers, do we? I mean, people have seen Keely Hodgkinson on the cover of Vogue, but steeplechasers don't get a look in.
Yeah, I mean, apart from Fatima Whitbread and Tessa Sanderson, I probably couldn't name Steve Backley, actually. Yeah. So three javelin throwers who of any note, and they're all UK ones, all British ones. So it kind of goes to show that, you could name track and field stars track stars from across the globe, but when it comes to the field events, it's like, well, they're kind of, let's give the other kids a chance to do something. You can't run, but you can throw this shot put. So somebody who's a little bit bigger and chunkier might be good at the shot put or the discus or the hammer throw, and they're not what you would call athletic in the running sense of the word. And the 5,000 and 10,000 meters, when they're broadcasting that on television, they often cut to some of the field events. There might be the javelin going on, there might be the shot put. Obviously, they stage it so that there's always something going on. And having been at the indoor championships, the UK indoor championships in Birmingham this year and last year, in actual fact, I had a great time. Absolutely fabulous to see those things. I found the thrilling events were actually the slightly longer ones, because you're going around a 200-meter track, and you've kind of got a mix of abilities, and there's rarely somebody who was head and shoulders above everyone else. I think George Mills won the 3,000 meters. I don't think 5,000 is part of it, but it was just fantastic to see. And I didn't know any of the athletes apart from George Mills. Keely Hodgkins did the Saturday, didn't do the final on the Sunday, but it was a great experience. And the tickets there were quite reasonably priced. And in February, when it's cold outside and you want to be inside, it's nice to be able to go, oh, just take my jacket off, sit here and watch some athletics. Lots of fun. I'd certainly recommend that. Maybe a team outing next year. Who knows? But there are other innovations that came in. One thing I want to draw on is in 2012, I think this was the first time that it was really something came into the consciousness was the multi-sport aspect of it. So you would have different sports going on at different times. You could watch that sport on a dedicated feed. So you could go and watch the shotgun, you could go and watch the fencing, you could go and watch the kayaking, or you could watch the athletics on the main channel. So you had the choice of the events at the Olympics. And the same could be done for track and field athletics in the same way. I mean, it's not just going round and round and round in circles. There are other things going on around that stadium, and it's kind of a unique sporting environment where you've got multiple disciplines happening at the same time.
I think some people are, when the draw is athletics. We want people to be able to want to watch whatever they want to watch. Sometimes, as much as I love watching the track events, sometimes I'm engrossed in watching the pole vault, watching the long jump, the triple jump, and things like that. But then when it briefly, you get highlights of those as it is, and then it's back off again, and then you're not going to get it back to like loads of other people have jumped or whatever, and it can be frustrating. Whereas they've clearly got their hierarchy of the events that they want to show, and everything else just fills time.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I mean, I love watching the 5,000 meters. That's an amazing event because it's just the right amount of time to kind of keep an eye on it and see what's happening. And things can happen in those events. You can get somebody pull out. You can get somebody who's just out the back and thinking, well, what's their game then? You're watching them. Like Ingebrigtsen was towards the back for the first few laps, and people were saying, well, has he fully recovered from his injury? I think that question was well and truly answered by the end of that race. But it's kind of watching the cat and mouse game, and I like it when an outsider comes through from maybe third or fourth to kind of win the event. That's exciting. Whereas if you've got a defined level to jump to, like in pole vault, and you've got somebody like Mondo Duplantis who's just so far ahead of everyone else, he could literally just sit out the early rounds and then just go and jump and win, and then push the world record up by 1 centimeter. It's got its own kind of thrill, but it kind of means that you feel a bit shortchanged, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not the fan of I'm not a fan of breaking the world record by 1 centimeter at a time, and then going to the next championships and breaking it by 1 centimeter at a time. It's
I
yeah,
love it.
it's a good spectacle, but he knows what he could jump, and he could very easily just go right. I'm just going to say it like 5 centimeters. That's what I know. I could do that in training. I'll break the record then, but then it doesn't make. I suppose at the end of the day, it's about entertainment, isn't it? And that's
I think does he get more money every time he breaks the world record as well? Because I thought he was just, looking after number one and getting his payday.
Yep, I think that's exactly it. I know that Sergei Bubka, the Ukrainian pole vaulter, used to do exactly the same back in the 1990s. He would just move it up a little bit, half a centimeter, the minimal amount, just to clear it, knowing that he could easily clear it. He could probably have done it with a beer belly and just jumped over the top and still cleared it quite nicely. But yeah, I suppose it's different with the long jump and shot put and things like that. That's individual. One moment of absolute brilliance could make the difference, whereas it's a lot more measured in the pole vault. You can kind of track your run up. The conditions aren't going to impact you so much, and it's a controlled environment.
suppose it's good for where we talk about the exposure for these field events. It's good to have stars like Mondo Duplantis and Brits like Molly Caudry and people like that who seem to be like stars in those field events, like putting their sports like firmly into the public consciousness and becoming stars in their own right because of those, let's say, not forgotten but field events that aren't that don't have the coverage that they deserve, let's say. So it's good that these stars are making, fame for themselves and bringing their own sports into a greater spotlight.
The less box office events, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Do either of you have a sort of hot take or something that you think might be an unpopular opinion that you feel about watching athletics? I can go first. The reason I asked this question is because I absolutely love the silly little chairs they put people on when they're waiting to find out if their
The hot
time was
seats.
good enough to qualify. Yes, the hot seats. That's it. I think it's so awkward. It's so silly. They look so uncomfortable. Like, need a cool down? No, you can't have one. You've got to sit in this chair and just wait and be filmed. I just think it's so, I don't know, it seems really out of sync with the whole rest of the sport. And I love it because it's just so odd and awkward, but I love to see it.
Can I just say that's something that they have taken from cycling? So in the time trial, sorry, I told you I was going to ask my second mention of cycling.
That's two. And Andre
That's
did
two.
one for you, so I'm going to count that as three.
No. We'll argue this later. Anyway, so if you do a time trial and you are the fastest rider on that time trial, you get to sit in a chair waiting. And if you're, for example, in a long event like the Tour de France, you might have a time trial where one of the time trial specialists, the people who literally job is to bend themselves into an aerodynamic shape and just cycle as hard as they can for 20 miles, they might get on that seat and be there for maybe 2-3 hours waiting for the final rider to come through, because they go through at minute intervals and there's 150 odd riders. So if you go off first and you're one of the last, they do it in order of where you are in the standings. So if, for example, you're in 140th position, you're one of the first to go off that day. Whereas if you're the leader, you'll be in your yellow suit, nicely cooled off, waiting to go the last bit, and that sitting in the chair, it can actually be torturous. And they do it at team time trials as well, where they have the entire team sitting there, to the point that some teams would go, actually, let's ease it off in the last few kilometers so we don't win this event, so we don't have to sit in the chair for such a long time. It's not so bad on team time trials because there's only going to be about 15 teams, but it's still an uncomfortable position to be in.
I know that
chair
sort.
is it?
Sorry.
What kind of chair is it? Like a throne?
At the 2012 Olympics, Sir Bradley Wiggins was sat in a throne, but it finished at Hampton Court Palace.
So just part of the National Trust furniture there then, with the
Mm,
thistle on
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
I couldn't imagine being sat in that chair. I'd feel the awkwardness and yeah, you just like everything's set out to be all professional, everything like that, and then you've just got these seats that someone's just brought in from the back. Because I know I think there was one race in the 100 meters this week where Dina Asher Smith had to stay
Yeah.
from her heat to watch the other two heats, and then she every time it cut to her and the other person who was sitting next, she just looked so awkward because she'd
What,
obviously see
Dina?
herself. Yeah, she'd see
Yeah,
herself
she's.
on the big screen. It'd just be like, yeah, just keep the
After
camera away
everything
from
she's
me.
done for this country, she
Yeah.
gets that.
Mm.
My
What
God.
about what about when they walk out onto the track and they kind of like give them and they have to do like a little silly little thing like the Mobot or like that sort of thing or some sort of
What like you made us
pose.
do the other week?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. The thing that I did in
No, I
our
love
little
it.
video.
I love that they get to do that. And yeah, some athletes are so enthusiastic about it, aren't they? And then others just give an awkward wave, and you can tell they've hated every second.
Yeah,
I think it's
so we're all
part of
about
the I think it's part of the entertainment thing that we're. It's like if you want this to be more popular, then it's gonna have to have that entertaining factor about it. And if you want to know the people's names, then they need to come out and do something that you're going to relate to.
so really singing for your supper. Andre, I want to ask you a question because you are a proper tech nerd when it comes to cameras and drones and things like that. There's the rail cams, there's people on segways filming, there's different perspectives, there's cameras that are following the runners around the track. There's the 360 cam, and there's all sorts of technological advantages like that. What do you think of that? Do you think that adds to the sport or detracts from the effort?
I think that adds to the watching experience. I love all of that. There was a couple of instances where they flew the drone through the hurdles, and it's like I've not seen that before. That was really cool, and it's just like different angles that you can get from even the guy who's on the Segway his camera on a gimbal. It's really interesting, and but the problem is we're watching it, we're already hooked, but you need to get the people watching it, and that's the problem. While we can get amazed at these different angles and everything like that, you just need to be able to hook your potential audience, the non-athletics audience, to come and watch it.
Yeah, any thoughts on that one, Sophia? What do you think about all these weird camera angles and things like that? And
Yeah, I mean, I can't appreciate it to the level that you guys can, obviously, not being a sort of camera specialist myself. But yeah, it's fun to see all the different angles, and even when they, move out from a really wide angle shot to then sort of staying in close. I think it was Femke Ball or Bruder's Ball as her name now. Her 800-meter qualifying round just was so smooth, but I feel like obviously it was the smoothness of her performance, but also the way the camera followed her around. And yeah, it was just a beautiful, 2 minutes of footage. But yeah, I think it's great that there's different ways of trying to capture that sort of imagination and attention of the audience. And I guess, Andre, to your point, do we need to start a petition to get like the pubs showing it? How do we convert people?
I think that would be. I, I think I think I spoke to you months ago when I first one of the first occasions that we spoke, Dan, and when we met at Cannondale Park, I think we were talking about women's football, and I said the one of the problems with women's football is that you need to crack the male audience. Once you've got the male audience watching women's football, then you'll start seeing the popularity and the exposure um, increasing. And I think there's loads of other sports, probably like athletics, probably a little bit less so for athletics because you've already got probably a predominantly male audience watching the athletics, and that's increasing and becoming a lot more diverse all the time. But you just need to, and definitely I couldn't imagine watching athletics in a pub. It just doesn't seem. It feels so alien to to watch the 100-meter final in the pub and loads of people. Um, yeah, staring. Yeah, football fits the football, rugby, cricket fit a pub sort of environment. I don't know whether athletics does.
Or is that then why people aren't as into it, because it is more of a solo watching experience?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I am happier sitting down without other people bothering me to watch the athletics. So having somebody kind of say, "Oh, so who's that then? And what are they doing then?" All that, I like that. I like the color of their costume. You can tell my wife's not into athletics, not into running, not into sport generally. I love her to bits. She's an amazing woman, but she can sometimes perhaps rub me up the wrong way by saying these things. And I know she's doing it just to be nice and polite and lovely. And but yeah, that would wind me up. So it is. I think athletics is a solo thing to watch, but at the same time, it could become something bigger if you introduce it to, say, social running groups and say, "Hey, we're all going to go and watch the Diamond League." And go down as a group trip, or even just say, "Hey, they're showing the Diamond League down at the local pub, so we can go for a run and then go and watch the Diamond League afterwards and have a few alcohol-free lagers and beers and wines and maybe have some food." And that could be a way that a pub trade, they say, is dying, but it's not necessarily dying. It's just it needs new ideas. It needs to be able to present those sort of things, and the Diamond League might be the perfect solution for it.
I
Maybe that's
suppose.
what they should
Oh,
have done with the spare tickets for the European Athletics event, given them all to
yeah.
run clubs on the day of. If you know you're not going to sell the last 100 tickets, give 80 of them to the local, give it to the University of Birmingham, like athletics team, give it to the Brat, give it to the triathlon, like give them to the sports clubs and get more people excited and, yeah, part of it.
I think that the obviously once when they're filming these events, it's all geared towards the watching audience. So it's not the broadcasters don't really care about the people. Oh, yeah, it doesn't look very good when a stadium's half empty, but they're not. Everything's geared towards is millions of people around Europe or around the world watching this event. So if we can make it look as good as possible with all these technology, all these camera angles. I was looking at a social media comment, particularly about the women's 5,000 meters, and someone was saying how boring the race was. And these women are finishing a 5K in like 15 minutes. That's not slow. And right at the end where it got eventful. That doesn't mean the whole race wasn't. But in particular, those like camera angles, those side-on camera angles with the guy and the gimbal, and it's showing Femke Broders Bowl like running, and he just looks so easy. And then you compare it to someone like Keely Hodgkinson running the same, a different heat, and you can see the difference between, and it's just all down to having those different camera angles. We're able to do that analysis where people sitting at home can just watch and go, can immediately notice those differences, and it gives you that a bit of a immersion that will keep you coming back, hopefully.
I mean, it's almost as if you're part of the event when you do something like that. Can I just quickly talk about the Marathon World Championships, which is going to be taken away from the World Athletics Championships? It's going to have its own event. I think it's 2030 that's going to be happening, or 2029. That, for me, could be a game changer for marathons in the sense that it will give it its own stage to shine. And I think there are lessons to be learned from, and this is my third mention, a fourth if you count what Andre mentioned, of cycling. So in any Grand Tour cycling event, any cycling event, what you will have is there'll be long periods of time where nothing is happening. Everything is normal, nobody's attacking, everybody's just riding their bike, looking at each other, waiting for the next person to make a move. And what they'll tend to do is break away and go, "Oh, look, this is the Chateau de la Neuf. It's an amazing building. It was built in 1642 for Prince Louis XIV and this, that, and the other." And they'll read off a load of facts about it. And there'll be things at the side of the road, farmers doing kind of things in the field with their tractors, and kids doing dances in fields and schools and things like that. And they go off and they look at the countryside and they come back to the race. So I think that would be a good template for marathon racing. So rather than focusing on the runners, you could, for example, if it was being hosted, and I'm going to use Valencia because that was a marathon that's still in my head. If you're in Valencia and you're going past a particular thing, they could do an outward drone shot and say, this is a such and such, because nothing's going to happen really. And if it does, they can quickly cut back to it because it's not going to happen at such a point where it's going to make much difference. And they'll still have the recording to go back on if they've missed it. But it would be a way to draw in non-dedicated running fans. People would just go, oh, I can't be bothered to watch the running. 2 hours of people running around the street, that just doesn't look very interesting. But if you go 2 hours of people running around the streets, but lots of lovely sights and sounds of the place, that's good. And you can have the picture-in-picture of the actual race still going on, and then the actual thing that you're looking at, the Chateau Leneuve, whatever. And I think that's one way that the marathon can certainly become a televisual event, because unless it's the London Marathon, we don't watch it in the UK, do we?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what makes it different? Why do people watch London? Because they like to see loads of people. They like to see London streets not full of cars. Like, what is it that makes people watch that?
I like them combined. I don't think I'm a fan of the idea of the marathon having its own separate championships, because when it's as part of say Olympics, World Championships, European Championships, I feel like it should be part of it is an athletic sport. It should be part of the group. I mean, it doesn't get the coverage that it deserves because it's over a long time. It's not something that's in the stadium or something that can be that's over quickly. So it's probably a bit torn now. I feel like it's part of the group, but then obviously you have to. The coverage of any marathon is completely different to any other athletics event because of the duration that it is, and you can't have loads of cameras watching everyone all at once. So probably on one hand, I'm not a fan of it being separate, and another hand, because of the way it's separate as a separate athletic discipline to the rest, maybe it does need its own thing because it's something completely different. Everyone can within reason, everyone can complete a marathon within whatever time, but at 100 meters, not many people can do it within the 10-second criteria that the sport demands.
Like, I'd like it to be like Eurovision. Like when they do the little countries, like 3 minutes over the country of the competitors sort of walking around in a big coat saying how much they love Estonia, something like that. But like for each of the athletes, a little 3 minutes of their training or a bit of their history. Are they coming back after having a baby, or is this their first time, but they're only 21 and they've got an exciting career ahead? Like, just like, so you get to know who the people are. I feel like you'd have, you say in 2 hours, plenty of time to have a bit of a profile on each of the athletes.
That'd be something good, that if it is a long event like the marathon, you could just cut to, this is Sebastian Sawe, this is him in Kenya and training, and just a 3 minute. Nothing's really going to happen in that 3 minutes, and if it does, they can quickly just cut back to it. Like I said, if it's a city that perhaps hasn't got the landmarks, or the weather's not great, because that can impact how an event looks. If it's chucking it down with rain, it's going to be a whole different kettle of fish. You can't do those drone shots because the weather will be make it difficult to fly. It might be difficult to broadcast a signal back. So they're probably going to have to rely on those pre-recorded pieces. So I think that's a really good point there, that finding out more about the athletes would be really good, not only for the event, but also for them, extra exposure for them. So what about dedicated record attempts? So we saw back in, I think it was 2019, the Ineos 1:59:59 in Vienna, where Eliud Kipchoge did the first ever sub 2 hour marathon. Now that was set up to be a record attempt. It wasn't a dedicated marathon. He was the only person running, and there were people who were pacing him, and he had an awful lot of technology working in his favor. Would we like to see more of those sort of events at different distances, or would we like to go, no, that's not what we want? What's your thoughts on this?
I don't like it at all. I don't like dedicated record event attempts. I like them a bit like how Josh Kerrs was a part of the Diamond League. I like it as it's an amazing achievement. Just imagine like in London 2012, that Super Saturday, those 3 gold medals, like within 44 minutes. I almost feel like all of that was because it was part of the Olympic Games. It almost felt like one gold spurred on another gold, spurred on another gold. And if world record attempts were done individually, then you almost lose the spectacle. And it's your conditions are going to be optimized. You got pacemakers, technology, that's scheduling, everything's set up to externally for you to break the record. Whereas in Josh Kerr's, he did everything he needed to do for the training, and then he went to a real race and did what he set out to do, and that was about so much more rewarding to watch than if he'd just done it on some track that had been specially set up for him. So I like it as part. Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Sophia?
Well, conveniently, I've got the opposite opinion, so we're nice and balanced. I quite like it, and I think it when you look at it in retrospect, like the Breaking Two, at the time, I think the amount of extra work, the size of the team, all of the technology, the people in that sort of goose formation being a windbreak, all of that was required to meet that. And I think it helps to show people to get into the sport and really understand how mammoth of an achievement it is. So that when, fast forward, what are we, 5 years, 4 years down the line, and someone does it under race regulations and they actually get that world record and they get that achievement in a kind of legitimate sense, you can say, I understand how big of a deal this is, because look how much it took to get that a few years ago, and now the training, the technology, the quality of the athletes, whatever, like brings it to be possible now under race regulations. So I think if we only saw amazing feats of performance happen in those very set up ways, maybe it wouldn't feel very fulfilling. But I think when you see it and then you see the comparison to the in race world records being smashed, I think it's all just a nice part of the ecosystem, really. Like, it's all good. They're different for different reasons, but I think it's good to see more of it, really, more of the training, more of what it takes to do these amazing things.
Andre, should we give you the final word?
I suppose that we're sort of probably the wrong audience for this, because we're intertwined with athletics, so we'll seek out watching those individual record breakers. But the casual viewer will never be able to find someone doing a dedicated record attempt, whereas they may just sit down one day watching Olympics, watching the World Championships, watching the European Championships, and just stumble across someone breaking a world record and just be immersed by it, just because they were just at that time just watching it happen just right in front of them, just unfold.
Based on the frequency, it will be Mondo Duplantis, won't it? That'll be the one that people are most likely to tune in for.
Yeah.
And on that bombshell, I think we've talked about an awful lot on this subject, and yeah, there's a lot of great athletics out there to be watched, and we're very lucky to be living in an age where the technology has made it available that we can see it at the click of a button, go to a website, go to a TV box, wherever. So shall we move on to the cool down?
This is the Chatty Runners podcast.
So, well, we've talked a lot about the future of athletics and what we'd like to see more of, and hopefully we can get more people watching the sport that all three of us love. But we've reached the end of the main set, which means it's now time to slow things down, catch our breath, and head into this week's cool down. And this week we've got a question that might reveal slightly more about the three of us than we'd probably like. We talk a lot here about our love of running, but there's another side to that, the things about running that generally worry us. So this week's call down question is, what is your greatest running fear? So Sophia, you want to go first?
You might all say the same thing. I mean, I do have a slightly more light-hearted answer, but the true most sort of, I don't know, the most sort of worrying fear, I think, is just getting injured. Obviously, I've been injured. Obviously, Dan was injured maybe not that long ago, but thankfully took all the right steps to nip it in the bud quickly, and very sensible to do so. But I think the fear is that it would just, running will be taken away from you one day. And it's really hard, I think, when you are injured or if something happens with your kind of health, that you realize you don't have total control of your body. And in so much of running, we sort of get led to believe that we can control our effort, and we can push our pace, and we can go and do more miles, and we can go to the gym, and we can fuel or forget to fuel accordingly. And I think when you're injured, it's just a hard truth that you can't control everything that happens in your own body, which is just quite hard to deal with, I think. So yeah, that's my serious answer. But I'm really interested to hear what you guys had for this.
Dan, what's your answer to this? Is it going to be
Well,
something similar, or
yeah, injury is always a constant fear because as I get older, and I do realise that I'm at least over a decade older than both of you, probably a bit more, that my body is not as resilient, as tough, as able to recover. So it's not necessarily being injured. It's just the little aches and pains of, as rodders of run with rodders would say, what hurts this week, sort of malarkey. But my real fear is that my best days are behind me, that I won't get any faster. And I think this is brought into keen into vision, into my mind by the fact that we've got a 5K on Sunday, and I'm thinking to myself, I could run a PB at this, but I'm in the middle of a marathon training block. I'm scared of actually trying to run that PB in case I miss it. And it's like, well, this is it. I can't go any faster than this. That I've reached my high water mark, and it's all. I might as well just go and consign myself to the nearest crematorium and just let myself be turned into ashes. But the reality of it is that I should just stop worrying about it and get on and enjoy the run and just live the new running life that the world has given me. And maybe I might surprise myself. But yeah, not being able to be at my best, not hitting my PBs, not hitting my bests times.
I suppose a question for both of you. Do you think about your reasons that you've just said? Do you think about them often, or is it just something like a fleeting sort of thought every now and again?
I say fairly often. I try to do it, in the positive way though, which is being grateful that you're healthy enough to run, that you can run today, that you might feel tired, or you might think, oh God, it's so hot. It's really hard to fit in a run and enough sleep, but you can run, and some people out there are injured, and you might be injured in the future. So I think just trying to sort of be grateful for the days that you can run, and you can do what you want to do in your body, I think is a good way of looking at it. But I would say it's fairly frequent. Yeah, probably multiple times a month. But it's not sort of a fear that stops me doing anything or changes my behavior or anything like that, which obviously other types of fears in life can really sort of um, limit you. And this doesn't have that effect for me personally. But yeah, I guess if you're thinking down about whether you really do want to go for a hard effort and try and run as fast as you can, but you're worried about what might happen, then I guess that is maybe slightly limiting at times. Yeah.
I mean, I've actually got. I'll start that again. I've actually got coming up later on this month with the running channel, the sub 45 10-kilometer attempt. And I'm excited and equally worried about that I'll not be in the best shape on the night. It's going to be the night after my 25th wedding anniversary. Not that I drink alcohol, but we've got a busy couple of days ahead of us. My daughter's birthday's on the Monday. We're going to be visiting her and spending a lot of time with her, and that I won't be in the best shape for that. But sometimes you can surprise yourself. There's been times where I've turned up to parkrun, got 2 hours sleep, really tired, legs hurt, and you go, oh, I can't do this. Next thing you know, you cross the line like, that was a PB. I can't believe it, because you've taken the pressure off yourself. So I'm interested to see that. I'm interested to see how that works with me being paced around a track and letting loose the Mizuno Hyperwarps and seeing exactly what happens. So yeah, Andre, you must have some fears. You're kind of a cool, chilled kind of guy, but there must be something that really eats away at you when you're running.
I think a little bit like Sophia, my biggest fear is not being able to run anymore, whether that's through injury or something else, because, running's given me like so much, like physically, mentally, socially. I've met people, including both of you, I've had experiences that just simply wouldn't have happened without running. It's made me a healthier person, but more than that, it's become something I genuinely love doing. I'm not scared of losing those PBs or missing races. I'm just scared of that ability to do something that's given me all these things in the first place. So yeah, this not being able to go out for a run is not being able to do it at all. That's my biggest fear in this, because I just, in my mind, I feel as soon as I stop, this happens less so now, but previously, as soon as I stop running, I'm going to lose all the benefits. I'm just going to revert back to how I was before. I'm going to wake up the next day. I'm just going to be back in that unhappy place again. But it's getting easier now, where I can be like, as soon as I've gone after a very difficult, a very demanding schedule, I can just have a week off, and that's fine. I can come back, and that'll be fine. But that's what scares me the most.
Can I just say that if you did end up not being able to run anymore, you could just take up cycling, because quite clearly you're a closet cycling fan. You
That
admitted
was
that you like the
four,
track running. That's
four
four.
and five
That's
in one
four.
sentence.
4 and 5 in one sentence. I'll allow that. Yes, I'm happy that I've used up all of my lives this episode for mentioning the two-wheeled activity that I'm not allowed to mention.
I think you're right, though. He probably would. There would be you would find another, cardio kind of thing that gave you the same endorphins. You definitely would.
Pickleball. That's the next big thing.
We talked about it before, and
We have.
you're not wrong.
Yeah. So, like that, the pod is drawing to a close, and our time tonight together is over. It's, as always, been an absolute pleasure. Both Andre and I are doing the Unity 5K this weekend, and if you see us, I mean, you know what we look like. We're all over the social media. Please come up and say hello, but just bear in mind that we might not be in the best of places, particularly after the event, if we've just missed out on a PB or whatever, or might have injured ourselves. You never know. Anyway, Andre, do you want to give us your socials?
You can get me everywhere. Andre runs with a Z.
And Sophia, what are your socials or social?
Instagram, yeah, social singular. I'm on Instagram at Sophia and Andre.
Okay. And I am on YouTube. I am on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok. I'm trying to get it on TikTok. Other Adventures Await Me is my name. I think on TikTok I'm still Dan Braddock, but I'm going to change that as soon as I get the opportunity, because it allows you to change it once a month. I think I opened up an account a year ago and didn't delete it. So yeah, deleted that other one now, but I can't change it until a certain date. But anyway, that's where we are. We're also Chatty Runners Podcast on Instagram. And if you want to email us, just send us an email at chattyrunnerspodcast@gmail.com. Or just walk up to us in the street and say, hey, it's you off the Chatty Runners. I love your show. So my name's Dan, and I've really enjoyed being on this podcast. Andre?
My name's Andre, and as usual, I love chatting with both of you.
Sophia, do you want to have the final word here?
Yeah, my name is Sophia, and it's been lovely talking to both of you, and I hope whoever's listening has really enjoyed listening to us all.
Cool. And we will hopefully see you out on the streets, pounding the pavements, putting in the miles, and having a lot of fun with it. Take care, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.